Yeah, hello everyone. Is my voice audible, guys?
It's
Right. So, anyone have any doubts from the last session? So, in today's session, let's try to understand first relationship between the components.
Yeah,
Yeah, tell me.
yes, sir. In response, another component, another attribute is there is a rating. So if you want to retrieve that rating, sir, then how to do that one?
Same way, like that is in the object format, right?
Yes, yes, sir. Inside like the nested kind of thing.
Let me just go to that card. Suppose here all the products, right? Now in this we have one rating whose value is one more object, and in that again we have rate some rating 4.3, and we have count something like this, right? Suppose you want to retrieve this part 4.3, then in that case what you will do means here I will pass rate, or I will just say rating equals to product dot rating dot rate, product dot rating dot rate. Now you can just grab that in your card as a rating, and wherever you want to add you can add. Suppose I want to add here, I will say that here rating. Let me run this. So simply we have to extract like this. So image was direct property, so product dot image. Price was direct property, so product dot price. But rate was not direct property. That's why product dot rating dot rate. This is how we have to extract that data. So if you go to all products, click on get products, scroll down. Here you got the rating. Nice. One. Yeah, tell me guys. Understood this part? So here we are getting now ratings. Yeah, yesterday's code I did not push. Today I will push. Okay, today is our yesterday's code. Now in today's session, let's try to understand first of all the relationship between the components. So we can create two types of relationship between the components. The first type is we can create parent-child relationship. Second is sibling relationship. These are the two relationships that we can create between the components. First, let's try to understand how to create parent-child relationship. So it's very simple. If you are rendering any component under another component, then that rendered component is called child component. And inside which component you are rendering, that component is called parent component. For example, if you have a component A, let's assume that this is your component A, and inside this component A, you have some JSX, and inside component A, if you are rendering any other component, let's assume that here you are rendering B component. Now, in this case, we can say that A component and B component are in the parent-child relationship. In this case, we can say that A and B are in the parent-child relationship where A is a parent and B is a child. B is a child because B is rendering inside A component. That's why A will be considered as a parent component and B will be considered as a child component. Child component. So in our case, if you see app component. Now under app component, we are rendering remaining all other components. Now this is your app component. Under app component, we are rendering nav component. So what is the relationship between app and nav means? They are in the parent-child relationship, where app is called parent and nav is called child. In the same way, under app only, we are using routes. Under routes, we are using route. And then inside the route, we are using home. So if we try to understand what is the relationship between app and home means, again, they are in the parent-child relationship only. Because home indirectly rendering under app only. So any component which is rendering under another component, that rendered component is called child component, and component which is allowing to render another component, that component is called parent component. That is parent component. Now let me uncomment this routing part right now. If I uncomment it, your routing will not work now. Now see, there is no routing. Now what I will do here, I will directly render home component. Now directly home component I am rendering under app component. So here we got home component. So first we are rendering the app component. So right now our flow is like this. First we are rendering app component. Under app component, we have two components. We are rendering nav component, then we are rendering home component. So in this case, we can say that app is a parent of nav component and it's a parent of home component. So the relationship between app and nav is parent-child. Relationship between app and home is also parent-child. Where app is a parent, nav is a child, app is a parent, home is a child. Then what is the relationship between nav and home means? The relationship between nav and home is siblings. It is a sibling. Why sibling? Because they have a common parent. So whenever you find that components have a common parent, then those components will have a sibling relationship. It's like how we have a siblings and parent-child relationship. In the same way, they have created this relationship between the components, parent-child and sibling. Understood how to identify the relationship and how to identify which component is parent, which component is child. Anyone, any doubts in this? Let me know on the chat, guys. Yes, no. So there are almost 16 peoples, 16
Yeah.
to 15. So
Yes. Do we
another,
have any nested, I mean, parent, child, and inside again child like that? Do we have any that concept?
yes, that also you will have. But did you understand this part?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now we can have nested relationship also. For example, you can have an app component. App component child can be a component. A component child can be A1 component. A1 child can be A12 component. Okay. Let's assume that we have app component, A component, A1 component, A12 component. Now app component direct child. For app, direct child is A component. A component child is A1 component. A1 child is A12 component. A12 component. So you can have like this nested child parent child relationship as well. So here two more terms you have to understand. For app component, A is a direct child. Direct child. Direct child means under app directly we are rendering a component. So we call as a app has a direct child, that is a component. What is the relationship between app and A1 means again they are in the parent child relationship only. But for app, A1 is a indirect child. Indirect child. So these two more terms you have to understand, direct child and indirect child. For app, A is a direct child. For app, A1 is an indirect child. Why A1 is indirect child? Because A1 we are going to render inside the A component and A component we are rendering inside the app component. Inside the app component. So here, direct child, indirect child. This part you have to understand. In the same way, for A1, A is a direct parent. For A1, A is a direct parent. For A1, app is a indirect parent. It is an indirect parent. Same with A12 also. For A12, A1 is a direct parent and A and app are a indirect parents. They are like a indirect parents. For app, A12 is an indirect child. For A also, A12 is an indirect child. But for A1, A12 is a direct child. It is a direct child. Why direct child? Because A12 we are directly rendering inside the A1. Directly we are rendering inside the A1. So in our case, now if I just go instead of here rendering home component, I will render here all products component. Now here you got all products component. Now if you see this flow, so in this, the flow is something like this. We have an app component. Under app, how many components we are rendering? How many components we are rendering? Can you guys tell me? How many components we are rendering under app?
Two components.
What are
Two.
those two components?
Nav and all.
Nav and all.
Nav and all. Nav and all products. And under all products, are we rendering any other component? Under all products, are we rendering any other component? Let me just go to
Yes,
all
card
products.
comp.
Nice. So under, see, this is our all products component. Under all products component, here we are rendering card component. See, here we are rendering this card component. And how many card components we are rendering? Merely 20 card components we are rendering. Same component we are rendering 20 times. Okay. So here all these are card components only. Card component only. Card component only. Card component only. Now, if I ask you what is the relationship between app component and card component, what will be your answer? Relationship between these two components. Are they?
Indirect child.
Yeah. So first of all, they are in the parent-child relationship. But in that to parent-child also, for app, child is card component is indirect child. Or you can say for card, app is an indirect parent. For card, app is indirect parent. Why indirect parent? Because directly we are not rendering card component inside the app component. App component has a direct child called all products. Under all products, we are rendering the card component. So the relationship between app and card is parent child only, but in that case, app is the indirect parent of card. For app, card is the indirect child. So this both the terms you have to understand: direct child, indirect child. Which components are called parent-child relationship? Which components are called sibling relationship? Okay. Now, what is the relationship between nav and card? Nav and card.
Sibling.
Yeah. So for card, who is the parent? All product. And for all product, nav is like a sibling. So we call this also as a complex sibling relationship. We just call it as a sibling relationship only. So only two relationship you have to understand: parent-child and sibling. That's it. Here also they are called siblings only. What is the relationship between all products and card?
Parent-child.
Parent-child. So are they direct parent or indirect parent?
Direct.
They are direct parent.
Direct.
Because inside the all product directly we are rendering the card. So all product is a direct parent. Okay. So understanding this relationship is very important. Now, once you understand this relationship, now sometimes we get a requirement where we have to share the data from one component to another component. Sharing the data between the components. Now you will get a requirement where you have to share the data from parent to child, or sometimes you might get a requirement to share the data from child to parent, or sometimes you might get a requirement to share the data between siblings. Sibling 1 to sibling 2. Sibling 2. So now we have to understand how can we share the data between the components if they are under a certain relationship. How to share the data between the components if they are under certain relationship. Suppose if they are in parent-child relationship, then how can we share the data from parent to child? Parent to child. If they are again in parent-child only, but this time I want to share the data from child to parent. If they are in the sibling relationship, how to share the data from one sibling to another sibling, or sibling 2 to sibling 1. This is what we have to understand. In this, already we have done one part. We have shared a data from one component to another component. Already we have done in last session. So anybody can guess in which scenario we have done this part. Already we shared data of one component into another component.
By using props.
Yeah, but what are those components? Which we have implemented. Already we have implemented this part. Already we have shared a data of parent component to child component in one of the example from previous sessions. Anybody able
All
to?
products
Yeah,
passing the information to the card
nice.
component.
So we had all products component, and in that all products we were rendering card component, and whatever data we have received from server, that data came to from all products. We sent one request to a server, and server sent some data to us. So data came to the all products component. So data was present with the all products component. Then this data we have shared. We have shared with the card component. This data we have shared with the card component. And how we have shared? Using the concept called props. Using the concept called props. So if I go back here, if you see, we are sending the request to a server from which component? From all products component. We got that data, and that data we have updated in our state. And this state we have created inside our all products component only. Then whatever data we have in all products component, that data we are passing to the card component. How we are passing the data? Using the concept called props. So one more use of the props is to share the data from parent component to the child component. You can share the data from parent component to the child component using props concept. Using props concept. Okay. First, let's try to understand how to share the data from parent to child. One of the way is using props concept. Using props concept. Using props, we can share the data from parent component to the child component. Suppose if I have like these two components, component 1 and component 2. Now, if I want to share the data from component 1 to 2, then I can share using props component. From component A, I can share the data to component B using props concept. Already we have done this in the last session. Now here A is a parent, B is a child. So whenever your components are in the parent-child relationship, and if you want to share the data from parent to child, in that case, you can go with the props concept. You can go with the props concept. So let's try one more example here. So what I will do here, inside this components subfolder, I will create one more subfolder, something called parent-child. Now inside this, I will create a component a.jsx. Here I will create one more component b.jsx. Let me close all this right now. I have a.jsx file, b.jsx file. Inside a.jsx file, I will simply create one simple component called a component. Simply, I will add here h2, and I will say it is a component. And inside b.jsx file also, I will create one component that is b component. Here also, I will add one h2, and I will say b component. Okay, let me just add some basic style. Here's simply I will add one basic style. I will create one object outside my component, something like const a styles. Here I will add width, something like 500 pixel. I will add here a box shadow, 10010 pixel green. I will add text align center, margin, some 100 pixel auto, and I will add padding, something like 20 pixel. And this A styles directly I will pass here. Now same I will copy and I will paste here as well. So here I will say B styles. I will change width to 300 pixel. Here box shadow to red color. Text align center, margin I will make it like just 30 pixel. Now here we don't require this. Padding 20 pixel. Okay, here simply I will pass style B style. Okay, I'm just showing you different ways to add CSS. Now here I'm not creating any separate CSS file. I'm just doing here inline styling. If you want directly all these properties, you can add here itself. But again, it will look very complex. That is the reason I am just creating a separate object outside my component. And that object I am passing into my styles props. Now let me just minimize it. Now, if I ask you what is the relationship between A component and B component, so what will be your answer? What is the relationship between A and B? Are they in the parent-child relationship right now?
No.
No.
They are not in the parent and child relationship. Now, what I will do inside the B component, I will import A component, and here I will render that A component. Now, are they in the parent-child relationship, A and B?
Yes.
Yeah, who is parent here?
B.
B is a
B.
parent. Who is the child? A is the child. Why? Because inside B, we are rendering the A component. So A is called child, B is called parent. Okay. So like this, you have to identify the relationship. So what I will do, I don't want to make A as a child. So I will remove this part. I want to make B as a child, A as a parent. So what I will do here, I will import B component. And here I will render that B component. B component. Now, A component, I will directly render inside my app.jsx component. So here simply I will import A component. Now here I will remove this all products. I will remove this home also. And after nav, directly I will render A component. So if I go back to my browser, it looks something like this. Okay. So let me just increase padding here. If I increase padding, it looks like this. And if I go to the B, Looks like this. Let me add here a margin. Looks like this. So we have A component, we have here B component. So here A and B are in the parent-child relationship. Now my requirement is I want to share the data from A to B. Okay, from A to B, I want to share the data. Now, when we want to share the data, whenever I click on some button, okay, for example, here I have, let's assume that in my A component, I am having one button, pass data to B. So if I save it, there is a button in my A component. Okay, here let me just add one BR tag so that we will get one line break here. Now, if I click on this button, some data I want to display here. B component, I will take one paragraph. After this H2, I will take here paragraph. I will say here data. Here I want to display some data. Here we got something called data. The moment I click on this button, some data should be displayed here. Some data should be displayed here. The moment I click on this button, some data I want to display here. And whatever data I want to display here, that data should come from A component. That data should come from A component. It means, first of all, we should have some data with the A component. If you want to share the data from A to B means you should have some data with the A component. So what I will do inside my A component, I will create one state. Here I will create simply one state. Now inside this state, I will maintain some data here. Okay, initially I will maintain empty data. There is no data, like this empty data I will maintain. Now this data I want to share with B component so that B component can display here. So how to share the data from A component to the B component? Because now they are in the parent-child relationship where A is a parent, B is a child. Now you want to share the data from parent to child. So this is where your props will come into picture. So what you can do, to this B component, we can pass some prop. Like I am passing here something like info. And inside this info props, as the value, I will pass this state. So basically what I am doing, whatever state, whatever data I have in this state, that data I am giving to the B component as a props, Now, whatever data you will have in this state, that data will be available to B component as a props. Now, in B component, we will have a props here. Now, using this props, we can access that info. And whatever value you have in that state, that value will be displayed inside your B component. Here, see, whatever data you have stored, that data is displayed. Now, the moment I click on this button, I want to show here some data I want to pass. So what we will do means, whenever we click on this button, we will just update this state. Whatever data we have in this state, that data we will update. The moment data gets updated in this state, that updated data will get reflected in the B component. Whatever data you will have in this state, that data will be shown in the B component. So whenever you click on this button, whenever we click on this button, I will call one function. Directly, I am defining one function here itself. So now, whenever you click on this button, this function will be called. Inside this function, I will call set state, because using set state only we can update our state. And to this set state, I will just say that I will just pass here some name. For example, I am passing Kabir. Now, whenever you click on this button, internally this function will be called. This function internally calls set state. Now, set state will do two things. First, it will update your state, and it will re-render the component. Re-render the component means it will recall a component. If a component is recalled, internally B component will also be recalled. And whenever B component is recalled, at that time, what is the value of state? The value of the state is Kabir. So that Kabir will be given to B component as a props. Now B component will render, it means all these lines will execute, and at this point of time, props.info value is Kabir. So it will be Kabir on this screen. So the moment I click on this button, I got here Kabir. So if I refresh, initially we have like this, no data. The moment I click on this button, I got Kabir. So basically what we are doing, we are passing the data from A to B as a props, So whenever you want to pass the data from parent to child, we can go with the props concept. Understood? How to pass the data from A to B using props? Already we have seen in the last class also, but still I am showing this one simple example so that you can understand the concept.
Sir, in A component, can you go once? Info is what is info, sir? Is it a
Just a key name. This is props, right? This entire thing is a props. Now your props will be in the key value pair. So this is my component. This component is created by me. So it's my wish. I can take whatever key I want. This entire thing is props. So your props will be in the key value pair. So you created the component. You decide what should be the key for your props.
props should be passed as a props dot key name, right?
Props should be passed as an attribute.
Okay.
Okay, already I have covered, right? Props concept.
Yes, sir.
So this part we call as a props. Now this props will store inside the B component's first parameter. And that we are accessing using this dot operator here. Okay, or else you can destructure here directly info. And here, no need to use props word now. Directly you can say info. Still, you will have the same result. Now, let's suppose if you have a relationship like this. Let's assume that you have A component, then you have a B component, and you have a C component. Okay, so let's assume that we have A component, then we have B component, and we have C component. Now my requirement is I want to share the data from A to C. A to C. Okay, how to create this relationship? First of all, we have to create C component also. So here I will create one file, c.jsx. So here I am creating C component now. Okay, let's assume that here I will take some H5. I will say data. Now C component should be the direct child of B component. It means we have to go to the B component. Here we have to import C component, and then after this paragraph, I will render here C component. So if you see here, A component child is B component, and then B component child is C component. So we have created this relationship. A component child is B, B child is C. A is a indirect parent of C. C is a indirect child for A. Now I will just copy this styles. And I will add for C. I will say here C. I will change it to 200. Here I will say something like blue. And here 20 pixel. So if I go back, now it looks like this. We got like this. Okay. A child is B, B child is C. Now my requirement is the moment I click on this button, this Kabir I want to share with C component. I don't want to share it with B component. I don't want to show that Kabir in the B component. So what I will do, I will comment this part. Now it will not be shown in the B component. Now requirement is the moment I click on this button, that Kabir should be displayed here. It should display in the C component instead of B component. Now, can you guys guess how can we share the data from A to C?
Again, we need to pass from B component to C. Using
Again, we have to pass
from B to C.
B to C. Okay. Anything else, guys? Any other knows any other way?
Using props.
Yeah, using props only we have to do. But how to do using props? Now the data is with A component. How you will give to the C component? Because C component we are not rendering directly in the A component, right? Then how you will pass using props? Answer is right. We have to use props concept. But how you will use props concept? Props concept we can use only if they are in the direct parent-child relationship. But now here, C is a indirect child of A. Now see here we have a A. Now, if you want to pass props means here you should have C component, but here you don't have any C component. So how you will pass data as a props? Anybody can guess?
Props dot state.
But where we how to pass? So basically what you have to do is first you have to share the data from A to B. Then from B you have to share the data to C. Directly you cannot share the data from A to C. It's not possible. Directly it's not at all possible. That's why we have to share the data from A to B first. Once the data is available with B, the same data again we have to share with C. So already we are sharing the data from A to B using props. So in the B component, we are receiving that data here as a info. Now what we have to do? Now again to the C, we have to pass one props. Now you decide what should be the key for the props. I am deciding key should be data. What should be the value? Value should be the data of a component. So right now, where is the data of a component? Right now, the data of a component is inside the info. So what we have to do here, simply we have to pass that in. Now go to the C component. Now here you will destructure your props, and here you have to say data. Now that data you can display it. Now see, by default you will get here coverage. Let me refresh, and if I click on this, I got coverage. I got here coverage. Okay, let me make it H4. So how we are passing the data? We are passing the data from A to B as a props. Again from B to C, we are passing the same data as a props. Okay, it's completely your wish what key you want to take for your props, because this component is created by you. If you find any predefined components, then those predefined components will have predefined props. And whatever key they have decided, that keys only we have to use. But here, C component is created by us, so we can decide what should be the key for our props. If you want, you can keep info only as a key. That will also work. If I keep info only, then here I have to make it info. And here again, I have to make it info. So there will be no change in the output. So the point what you have to understand is you cannot pass directly the data from A component to C component. Why we cannot pass? Because C is an indirect child of A. That's why if it is an indirect child, we cannot pass directly the data. So in that case, what we have to do? First, we have to pass the data from A to B. Then from B to C, we have to pass the data. So from A, we are passing the data to B as a props. Then here we are receiving that data in the form of props. Then again that props we are passing to the C component. Again in C component we are receiving as a props, and that data we are rendering here. Understood this point, guys? Like how many of you understood and how many of you did not understand? If you understood, just type 1. If you did not understand, type 0. Now I will give you one assignment. You guys have to do that. Now let's assume that I have A component, I have B component, I have C component, I have D component, and I have E component. Okay, let's assume that our components are arranged in this particular sequence. So I have here A component, and here I have E component. Now somehow you have to share the data from A component to E component. And in between A and E, you have B component, C component, D component. In between A and E, you have B, C, and D. You have here B component. You have here C component. Here you have D component. So now you have to think how to share the data from A component to E component. So you have to share the data from A to E. Okay. So you know the process now, how to share the data from A to E. Can you tell me what is the process to share the data from A to E? Anyone?
We need to pass props A to B, B to C, C to D, D to E.
So from A to B we have to pass. Then from B to C we have to pass. C to D we have to pass. And finally D to E we have to pass. Okay, now you guys do practically. If you do that, then only you will understand how you will be sharing the data from A to E. In tomorrow's session, we will discuss what is the problem we are going to face if our components are nested like this, and if you want to share the data from uppermost component to the innermost component. Right now we have only 5, but let's assume that like this, you have a chain of 20 components and you want to share the data from component 1 to directly component 20. Then what are the issues you are going to face? And what do we call to this particular process? So all those things we will discuss in tomorrow's session, and how to overcome this problem. What is the solution for this problem? That too we will discuss in tomorrow's session. Okay. So in tomorrow's session, I will introduce one more concept, that is context API. So what is context API? Why we go for context API? Okay, when to go for context API, that part we will discuss in tomorrow's session. And it is pakka interview question. Okay, if you go for interview, 100% they are going to ask about the context concept. And it is related to your props only. So in tomorrow's session, we will understand that part. So, but before you come to tomorrow's session, I want you guys to implement this example. So don't directly attempt this assignment. First, you practice whatever we have done in our class. Whatever examples, whatever scenarios I have explained, first you practice that. First, you become perfect with that part. Once you are perfect with that part, then only attempt this question. Directly, if you try to attempt this part, then you might face into confusion, and that is not right way for the practice. Right now, you guys are learning. So first practice whatever we are doing in the class. First practice class examples. Once you have done with your class examples, then you can try this one. So from here, things will become slowly, little complicated. Make sure you are revising all your previous concepts of React. You should know what is component, what is state, okay, what is props, what is JSX, what is React elements, all things, whatever we have covered till now, you have to keep practicing, keep revising. Don't revise only current topic. Revise your previous topics as well. You should know what set state does. So if I ask any time, can you tell me what set state is doing? You have to tell very clearly what set state does. So if you are able to tell clearly, then only you are on the right track. Okay, so keep revising all the previous topics that we have covered. So I will push today's code and last class code right now. So within 5 minutes, you should be able to see on the GitHub. Yeah, if you have any doubts, let me know. Yeah, I will upload right now, GitHub. Okay. Just within 5 minutes, you should be able to find today's and yesterday's. Yeah, that's all, guys. If you don't have any doubts, yeah, you guys can drop. Let's join tomorrow at same time.